Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. My guest today is Lawrence Wilkerson, who was Chief of Staff to Colin Powell when he was Secretary of State in the George W. Bush administration. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
In 2004, you were put in charge of a probe into torture techniques used by U.S. troops and contractors in the infamous Abu Ghraib detention center. In Iraq, you discovered what can be described as a worldwide detention and torture network directed from the White House with the support of the military and the CIA. Since your departure from government in 2005, you've denounced such methods and become a sometimes forceful critic of U.S. foreign policy. And you're now a professor of government and public policy at the College of William and Mary in Virginia.
Right.
I want to begin with Donald Trump, the new U.S. president. During the campaign, he claimed that he intended to bring back techniques such as waterboarding. And in his first interview since his inauguration, the president argued that torture, quote, absolutely works, and there are reports of an executive order being drafted that would open the door again to such techniques. You've investigated the issue, you've denounced it. What's your reaction to Donald Trump's intentions?
Like so many things, unfortunately, that the president has said, this is wrong, this is false. Torture does not work. My experience with the most professional interrogators from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and elsewhere in the United States is just that it doesn't work. But more importantly than that, torture has done, the fact that we tortured has done more damage to U.S. real power in the world, which consists of prestige and reputation as much as anything else, and its leadership of the general movement towards better human rights and better recognition of human dignity than anything else we've done. Even more so, I would say, than the actual invasion of Iraq. This lingers, and it lingers as the best recruiting tool, for example, for organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and so forth. And this just reflects what we were saying, people like me were saying in the Obama administration. You must do something, Mr. President. You must bring some accountability or at least some transparency to what happened. Otherwise,
and he didn't do it?
He didn't. Otherwise, people will resume it in the future feeling impunity. And I think we're seeing some of that right now.
John McCain, obviously a powerful Republican senator who was tortured, obviously, during the Vietnam War, immediately reacted and saying, no, the law is the law. We're not bringing torture back to this country, but still, Donald Trump obviously may feel differently. Do you think there'll be a pushback by Democrats, of course, but also by Republicans? Or do you think the president really intends to push the envelope on this issue and maybe reinstate torture and maybe some so-called black sites that were used by the CIA during the Bush administration?
I'm hoping that the president was merely speaking to, as he has done so many times on other issues, that group of people who constitute his core within my political party, the Republican Party. These are everything from rabid fundamentalists, whom I refer to as American Taliban, to others who are motivated mostly by money and the money associated with what we call the global war on terror, or what we did call it. This has become a complex, much like the military-industrial complex, that essentially influences policy for profit. I'm hoping that clearer heads will prevail, and one of those heads that might bring this to some decision point is John McCain, because he was very helpful to us in 2005 in getting the Congress to recognize what we'd done and to at least prohibit the armed forces from doing it again in law. So he's a stalwart in this business, and it's more than just personal in his own experience with torture. He said very emphatically, it's not about them, it's about us. It's about our values, it's about our reputation, it's about our leadership in the world and so forth. We've tarnished that. So it's essential that we refrain from doing this. And I think there's going to be, as you intimated, significant opposition. Again, though, I think the president is speaking to his entourage.
Right. I want to go back to the Obama administration. A couple of years ago, there was a very lengthy Senate Intelligence Committee report on the so-called enhanced interrogation program of the CIA. It was never fully released, and some people are saying it might never be fully released. It might not sound important, but you think there's still a problem with accountability, and why did the Obama administration not push more on this issue?
Yes, there is a problem. The president has just declared that one copy of this report will go into his archives, which won't be readable or reachable for 12 years, as I understand it. That's his feeble attempt, nonetheless important now because he neglected to do anything for 8 years, to preserve this report, because my party, elements of my party, Senator Burr, for example, from North Carolina, who heads the Senate Intelligence Committee, want to destroy every copy of that report. And they don't want to destroy it because, as they say, it was a politically motivated report. They want to destroy it because it's the truth. It is the insight we need into this process.
But what is this truth? I mean,
the truth is we tortured.
Yes.
And it was approved at the highest levels in the land.
But also, there were innocent people who were tortured, who were killed.
Rendered, yes.
And, I mean, for years we've seen Bush administration officials, then Vice President Cheney, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld saying, you know, most of the people there are bad apples. But this report, I mean, and probably intelligence information you've been privy to, point to the contrary.
Yes, and very emphatically they point to the fact that as the administration, the George Bush administration maintained it was effective, it wasn't. Torture was not effective. In fact, in the 6,000 some odd pages of the report is more than abundant proof that there was no actionable intelligence that led to productive moves by the United States obtained from any of the enhanced interrogation. That's the most damaging aspect of it.
Right. What's striking is one of Donald Trump's main appointments, Defense Secretary John Mattis, who's obviously in the military for years, seems to be opposed to this issue.
Yes.
Donald Trump even said that he had discussed with him and that then General Mattis had told him that a few beers and a pack of cigarettes was better than torture. Do you think that this could foreshadow a clash between them on this very issue and maybe other issues such as Russia or China?
I do, if the president doesn't listen. If the president listens and atones for his sins, if you will, then I don't think there will be a clash. If he proceeds and if he were to resurrect secret sites and if he were to go back to enhanced interrogation techniques, torture, I think you'd see General Mattis resign from the administration. So this is a big chance that Donald Trump takes if he wants to do this. And frankly, I don't think he'll take it.
Right. Are you also worried, obviously there are tensions with Mexico, with Europe, with NATO, but there are also tensions in Asia with China. I mean, you've worked on this issue for many, many years in the military, in the State Department. How worried are you that there could be a clash coming between the U.S. and China?
I'm very worried about the obvious, the South China Sea, where we have forces in proximity 24/7 and a possible incident there leading to something bigger. But I'm even more worried now by a president who is so inexperienced that he takes on the one issue that is a red line with Beijing, and that's Taiwan and its independence from China, formal independence from China. That will start a war.
That will start a war, you think? And,
yes.
And the risk is maybe bigger than maybe some incident with North Korea, you think?
I think so. I'm of the mind that this Kim is the last Kim. This is the last of the totalitarian Kim clan in Korea. That's the mind, incidentally, of all my Korean colleagues, too, with whom I've worked for 40 years. So they would prefer that we just deal as we've been dealing, as diplomatically and so forth as we can, and let this happen because they feel this is the last one. And what's going to happen is a military dictatorship when Kim is ousted. And they can deal with that. The South can deal with that. Over time, they will bring about reunification, and they will bring it about on their terms and peacefully. So we don't need a confrontational stance towards North Korea. What we need is to allow the South Koreans to do their job.
On Israel, quickly, you've been very critical of Israel in the past. What do you think of Trump's intentions vis-a-vis Israel?
I've been very encouraged in the last 48 hours by the fact that I'm seeing from the Israeli security community, IDF, Mossad, and elsewhere, and to a certain extent from the political community, evidence of great concern about some of the statements that Donald Trump has made.
I thought they were happy.
I don't think so. I think they're worried right now because you can go too far. Even Netanyahu has spoken as if he might be a little more circumspect about what Donald Trump might be proposing. I don't think Netanyahu is good for Israel. I think his greater Israel view is dangerous for Israel, particularly in the future. But I think even they are concerned with the precipitous way that Donald Trump seems to be suggesting he would move the relationship.
Last question. One of the other known, infamous time when you were involved was the preparation of Colin Powell's speech to the UN to say that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. You spent a few days in the CIA offices, and you said after that that this is probably your biggest regret, that you felt you have blood on your hands. Is this still haunting you today?
Yes, and I feel more today than I did then that the man at the heart of both that hoax on the American people and the international community and the UN Security Council, and at the heart of the torture program, is the same man, the Vice President of the United States, Richard Cheney.
Not George W. Bush.
And haunted also by the idea that the man who aided and abetted him was George Tenet, the Director of Central Intelligence, who lied to the Secretary of State during the process of preparation for that presentation.
And you feel that Colin Powell was not strong enough?
Not strong enough, not smart enough, nor I, to figure out on scene, as it were, what was happening to us. We weren't intelligence experts, so we had to listen to the so-called intelligence experts. But I look back and think, why weren't we more attuned to the fact that they were being guided by the vice president and not by the real intelligence? And that worries me because that means I was pretty dumb.
Lawrence Wilkerson, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for watching this interview on France 24.